You know, there's a rumor making the rounds this weekend that Trump was dead because he hadn't been in front of a camera for a few days. That's how much he's in front of a camera. When we don't see him there, we assume he must be dead. Despite the fact that he looks like a pumpkin that got left in the hatchback on a 100-degree day, he is definitely not dead. Everyone gets all worked up. Here's the thing, Donald Trump will never die. Forget it. He's like Dracula. He's going to keep sucking the life out of us forever. There will be no more trans in Transylvania when he is done.
They call themselves Democrats. They're really not democratic. They call themselves liberals. They're really not liberals. Well, a very good Thursday to you, and welcome back. We continue to be reached at 888-630-9625. And the Democrat Party, they got Zohran Mamdani in New York. Is he a Ugandan or something? What is he? Pretends to be a lot of things. He's a jihadi, I know that. Virulent anti-Semite, anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-freedom, and the runaway leader of the New York City mayoral contest. That's right, mayoral. The Democrat Party. And in Chicago, they've got Let's Go Brandon. Let's Go Brandon Johnson. He's a former educator. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers. An educator. And he's a Democrat. He thinks that the levels of murder in Chicago, pretty good, pretty ideal, really. It doesn't get much better than this, according to Brandon Johnson. And the billionaire, of course, Circumference, as he is known, J.B. Pritzker, he's the governor of the entire state of Illinois. And he is pro-crime also. These people are kind of amazing, aren't they? And President Trump, he smacked down a drug smuggling boat coming out of Venezuela day before yesterday. And the Democrats are now advocating for drug smuggling boats and for the gang members on them, drug smuggling gang members on. You know, they love everything bad. Oh, speaking of which, did you see the ads posted online with apparently with their guy Luigi Mangione, who gunned down, murdered on the sidewalk in New York, the CEO of a health insurance company, because he was the CEO of a health insurance company. And the Democrat Party applauded and said, oh, murder more. Oh, I hope there are more out there like Luigi Mangione, who the Democrats want to date. That's a euphemism. And he appeared. They've got a Luigi Mangione. Is it Luigi Mangione himself, Michael, or is it a look-alike? But in this ad for clothing now, they've got the murder. It reminded me this morning, the murderer. He's not convicted yet, but he will be as soon as the opportunity comes. I think even in New York, I think he'll be convicted. Although, you know, the videotape of the murder taking place and the man in evidence there, that doesn't necessarily do it, as we learned with the grand jury in Washington last week. Hey, here's the video of a Department of Justice Democrat employee throwing his Subway sandwich at a federal law enforcement officer in full gear. And here's the video, and the grand jury said, nah, I don't think we're going to have anything for that. We're going to let him go because we want more violence, more madness, more anti-law enforcement, more crime. They want more crime and more criminals. The Democrat Party. You know, the Democrat Party, you can't underestimate them, though. They do provide us with the overwhelming majority of the criminals that they're supporting and backing and sponsoring. So you got to keep that in mind, because the problem is not our guns, it's their sons. Or when we're speaking to them, it's not our guns, it's your sons, right? So we've got that. And the Democrats very angry. Oh, no, you can't just hit a drug-running boat out in the Caribbean Sea. You might, I don't know, the Democrats are angry about it because of the mental illness. And then they cross-dress. It's kind of strange. They say, first they come out and say, don't take on drug traffickers, drug smugglers, human traffickers, gang members, wife beaters. Don't take them on. Don't take on gang members. You see, they got well over 1,100 arrests. In fact, what did I see last time? Was it 1,700 arrests that we've seen in Washington, D.C. so far since we started enforcing the law, which the Democrats are against. And I was thinking that when we get to 1,776 arrests in Washington, that there should be a prize of some kind. There should be an award, maybe a hat or a T-shirt or something like that. Should get him something, a lucite block, maybe a golden statuette for being the 1,776th arrest in the crime crackdown in our nation's capital. What a crazy idea that would be. I think that's fun. And also, we've got all kinds of stuff. You know, the Democrats are still trying to blame Trump for Jeffrey Epstein, who was a lifelong Democrat and a skeezer of the First Order. And Major, he's so sleazy, he could only be a Democrat for life. That's the only possibility. But the women, who not all of whom they're not children anymore, they're grown women for the most part, held a big event at the Capitol yesterday. And the Democrats are pushing it. There were several Republican members of the House of Representatives there as well. But the Democrats are pushing it because they think they can tie the entire Jeffrey Epstein child molestation thing around Donald Trump's neck. And I played the audio for you yesterday with a group of victims of Jeffrey Epstein and the cabal that he ran with before he didn't kill himself in a jail cell in New York. And the women out there saying, one of them was kind of remarkable. She said they're going to put together a list of the names, since we haven't seen a list of the names and everything. They're going to put together a list of the names, and they said they're going to do it confidentially. Confidentially? Well, nobody wants you guys to put together a list that only you see. That doesn't make any sense. The whole point is to make all this public. But I've got that for you because that was an interesting moment. There was an interesting episode, a long-lasting episode on Capitol Hill yesterday. And, you know, these women deserve justice, and they deserve the truth, and we all deserve the truth. And if the names are going to come out, it turns out that the women can put together the list of names. But if they started declaring this guy is guilty and that guy is guilty, then they could be sued by the creepy child molesting rapists, right? And because lawyers and Harvard, you know, I blame lawyers and Harvard. Got an update on Harvard too, and that's bad news for America. But it's good news for anti-Semites. So it's good news for Democrats who firebomb Jews in Colorado and firebomb Jews in Pennsylvania. You know, they're not exactly on the side of civilization at this point. But the event on Capitol Hill last night with the women and the Jeffrey Epstein thing, they're trying to tie it around Trump's neck. And the women sat down with NBC Fake News, and they were asked, of course, is Trump really guilty? And they said, no. Anything inappropriate from Trump? No. But that's what the Democrats are trying to pimp here. And they're all the pimps, you know, this Ghislaine Maxwell, Democrat, Jeffrey Epstein, Democrat, whole operation, Democrat operation. Not that there might not have been some Republicans involved. Fine, release their names. Everybody's name should be released, should be made public. But it turns out the women might be sued if they made the names public. And also there was a cash settlement of tens of millions of dollars a few years ago, and a lot of money went to a lot of the women. So there are a lot of complications that the media aren't talking about. But they're trying to blame Trump for it because that's what they do. They're the Democrat Party. It's all they have. And that and cross-dressing, of course, the twisted, crazy Democrat Party. But it turns out that members of Congress, if the members of Congress, Republican women in Congress, were given the list of names by the victims of the Jeffrey Epstein cabal, that the members of Congress could make it public on the floor of the House of Representatives, make the names public, because they're protected legally when they, or whatever they say, basically on the floor of the House of Representatives or the floor of the Senate as well. So that is kind of an interesting one. Headline from the Daily Beast: Trump drowns out emotional Epstein victims rally with noisy flyover. Now that on two totally unrelated moments in Washington yesterday, the street pimps at the Daily Beast, that's their headline. Oh, you mean while the president was greeting the president of the United States was greeting the president of Poland at the White House, and they recently, just a week ago or so, had a Polish Air Force pilot crash and die while flying an American F-16, which we sell to them, and they fly them because they want to be part of us as all civilized countries do. And there was a flyover at the White House. So the headline is, Trump drowns out emotional Epstein victims rally. What? You mean at the Capitol, more than a mile away, right, with noisy flyover, having nothing to do with one another. But that's our news media. They're the filthiest, most corrupt institution in America. Dirty, dirty, dirty. They're not the good guys, that's for sure. And I mentioned Harvard. A judge says Trump administration unlawfully blocked $2 billion from Harvard. Now, Harvard may be the wealthiest university in the United States of America. They have an endowment of $53 billion, I think, last time I looked. And still, we, the taxpayers, are giving the wealthiest educational institution in America, billions of dollars a year because so many people that went to Harvard end up in government, and they're corrupt because at Harvard they teach people to be corrupt. And so they find their way into government, and they say, hey, let's give billions of dollars to Harvard because I went to school there. Maybe they'll name a building after me or something like that, a theater, something real good, because I'll bilk the money from the taxpayers and turn it over to Harvard University because I went to school there. But judge says Trump administration unlawfully blocked $2 billion from Harvard, and so they want their $2 billion back just because they're like Nazis and calling for the extermination of the state of Israel and all the Jews that live there, and targeting Jewish students on campus. Don't wear a yarmulke, don't wear a Star of David, because the Harvard students will Nazify the campus for you. And if those universities that are promoting Germanic 1930s style anti-Semitism, if you punish those universities, well, then you get a Democrat judge to come out and say, oh, no, you got to give that $2 billion back. I got to see if this judge went to Harvard, because that's how corrupt the institution is at this point in time. Isn't that amazing? Yes, sir. Yeah, but I did mention the Epstein victims out in front of the Capitol yesterday. Epstein victim calls Trump's a bluff on client list. Oh, that's what happened here. We know the names. Okay, well, how many years is it going to take for you guys to make it public, and how many millions of dollars will you accept? Because I actually do my homework, which apparently nobody in the news media is capable of doing. J.P. Morgan, this is from 2023. J.P. Morgan reaches $290 million settlement with Jeffrey Epstein victims. I'm sorry, that's just one institution, financial institution, J.P. Morgan. $290 million settlement with Jeffrey Epstein victims. I wonder if that has anything to do with anything here. But CNN very angry about this. And in 2023, June 12th of 2023, the CNN headline, J.P. Morgan reaches $290 million settlement with Jeffrey Epstein victims, and they typed, J.P. Morgan Chase has agreed to pay $290 million to settle a class action lawsuit from Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse victims, according to David Boies, a big-time Democrat political lawyer, one of the victims' attorneys. The victims had accused the bank of enabling sex trafficking by the deceased financier when he was a client. Oh, sure, he's deceased. How convenient. So that happened in 2023. Does that have anything to do with anything? It might. We had the communists rallying in China, meeting in China. They represent more murder than any three savages in the history of the world. We've got Xi Jinping, Ricochet Rabbit fame, and Vlad the Impaler Putin, and Kim Jong-un meeting in China. You also see the Indian Prime Minister was there, Modi, meeting with the communists as well. You know, they got 1 billion plus people in India. There is a battle for civilization going on Earth, and the Democrat Party is on the wrong side of all of it. Boy, are they on the wrong side of all of it. Yes, they are. But one of the highlights from the communist gathering, I've got this audio for you. Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin were caught on a hot mic having a discussion about taking organs from young people who they will then kill. Organs, new liver, new kidneys, new whatever you want from young people. Organ transplants and immortality for the communist leaders. That is coming up because that's what commies do. They destroy the world and kill everyone in it. If anyone should live, they become slaves. And the Democrats are pretty much on their side. We're at 888-630-9625. And I've got an update on the arrests and the guns seized in Washington, D.C. by law enforcement. The Democrats want to let them all go, give them awards. They want more guns on the streets. They want more murderers on the streets. They want more illegal alien gang member wife beaters wandering the sidewalks of America. That's the Democrat Party. All right, let's go to, and I've got updates on that. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Mike calling from Charleston, South Carolina. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. You know, I hear the Democrats always hollering about gun control.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed where the Trump team went into Washington, D.C. and arrested thousands of people. And they also got, the last I saw was like more than 140 guns off the streets. I think that's the kind of gun control that we really need. But I noticed that the woke white yuppie women of Chicago are opposed to that kind of gun control.
Yep.
And also, I had another thought about those woke white women in Chicago that are opposed to any help to stop crime. You know, they probably are disciples of Margaret Sanger. And, you know, her Margaret Sanger's goal was to eliminate the blacks.
Uh-huh.
So maybe they're protesting so that the black-on-black killing will continue and fulfill the desire of Margaret Sanger. What do you think about that?
Well, I couldn't rule that out, that's for sure. You know, they give out, I think they've stopped giving out the Margaret Sanger Award, but for many years, Planned Parenthood, which helps to exterminate about 40% of the black population in the womb every year in the United States, and the Democrats applaud that. They give out awards. They gave a Margaret Sanger Award to Hanoi Jane Fonda, not on our side. They gave a Margaret Sanger Award to Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton. You know, you're onto them, Mike. You're definitely onto them. And I've got an update on the number of guns coming up. We were just talking to our friend Mike in Charleston, South Carolina, and he was observing correctly that, you know, white, liberal, suburban protesters in Chicago, women, we got to ban guns. We got to confiscate all your guns. And then when in Washington, D.C., they grab people on the street with illegal guns. They're all illegal guns almost on the street of D.C. Now the Democrats are angry that you're arresting people and taking away their guns, which if you're a liberal might make sense. But if your brain works, that doesn't make any sense at all. Now, I've got the updated numbers from the Justice Department this morning, and it's all great news as someone that lives in Washington, D.C. Crime fighting is good. Fighting crime is good. But the Democrats, you know, they love murderers like Luigi Mangione, and they love Kilmore Abrego Garcia, wife-beating gang member, human trafficker, illegal alien, time and time again. And the Democrats, they applaud that. They want their daughters to marry that and then, you know, be beaten and murdered by them or something like that. All right, let's go back to the telephones before I get back, and then Chicago and crime and the madness. Let's go to, and D.C. as well. Let's go to Patty calling from Woodbridge, Virginia. Patty, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Patty.
Forgive my voice. I'm recovering from a horrible strep throat, and didn't add to my lovely conversation with my liberal son last night. He called to check up on me, and we're talking, and he's looking out the window of his condo. He's in the Foggy Bottom area. He looks down and goes, "Oh my God, what are they doing now? They're banging pots and holding signs or something."
Uh-huh.
And I know the devil made me do it. I should have kept my big fat mouth shut, but I said, well, chances are nobody's going to be killed. He went nuts. ballistic nuts and said, "Don't you dare talk to me about that. Don't you dare. We are living in a war zone over here thanks to Trump and your people. I don't want to hear any of that from you." And I said, "Okay, you must have thought you were talking to someone who cared," which of course I care very deeply. But anyway, then I hung up. And I know that my family's not the only one suffering from this, and really hurts a lot for a mom to have to hear that stuff.
Well, Patty, I'm very sorry to hear that your son has fallen into the Trump derangement syndrome trap. And there are millions of Americans that the Democrat, and this is 100% on the Democrat Party, Patty, and they are not the good guys, and they're not on the side of anything good. They are the party of the first American Civil War, as I now refer to it, the first American Civil War. They are on the brink of, and in fact, we're in the midst of a civil Cold War in the United States of America, and it is brother against brother and son against mother, just like the first Civil War that the Democrat Party and their boy Jefferson Davis got us into. But Foggy Bottom, for people listening out there across America, is, you may know, a neighborhood in Washington, D.C., in the city near the State Department. And D.C. voted for Kamala Harris. More than 90% of voters, more than 90, voted for Kamala Harris. And, Patty, I can hear the heartbreak in your voice, and I'm sorry to hear that. And also, a few weeks ago, my best girl and I, we both had strep throat, too. So we just went through that very recently, and I guess it's going around. I'm sorry. I hope we're not responsible for you getting strep throat, Patty. But
no, you are not. Maybe my son.
Yeah, it's probably your son who lives in Foggy Bottom, where where the monkeypox is quite pervasive too. But that's not important now. And the pots and pans thing, Patty, I've got to say, what he was witnessing out his window is Democrats who are gathering on street corners around Washington, including right where my best girl and I live, and they show up at dinner time with pots and pans and cowbells, and they bang loud metal things together on street corners, and they hold up signs that say "Free D.C." and things like that. And when they say "Free D.C., they mean make it free for criminal rapist murderers from illegal alien gangs out of El Salvador and Venezuela. Bring more drugs in so we have more fatal drug overdoses, shoot more people on the streets. They're pro-crime, and these people banging the pots and pans, Patty. I'm glad you mentioned it because my best girl and I, every night at some point, we're at home, say, "Oh, there they are, cowbells." We just say cowbells. And the cowbells are out in the corner, and they're banging their cowbells and banging pots and pans. They have the brains of children. And then you look outside, and there are 12 of them, and they're all 70 years old, and they're gray-haired, and they're smiling and having the time of their lives banging. And people honk at them and say, "Yeah, free D.C., free D.C. for criminals and for crime," which is what they're fighting for. But, Patty, you said that, your son, "Don't even start with me," and you guys created a war zone. Now, that is, I'm sorry, you're already aware of this, but I'm sorry to have to say that your son is kind of an idiot, isn't he? And it's because he's a Democrat, and all the Democrats are idiots. And everything they say is false, sometimes varying degrees. But this place has been a free fire zone for years and years. And President Trump noticed because one of the guys that worked on Doge was beaten by a gang of teenagers, 12 of them, who were carjacking a woman off of 14th Street. And I go down to 14th Street every day. I work on 14th Street every day. And this mob attacked the guy who goes by Big Balls. I apologize, can't remember his name. But they beat him bloody, right? And then there was another employee, government employee, that was mugged and brutalized. And then, of course, the Democrats. In fact, I think in court today, Patty, is the Democrat that staked out a Jewish museum in Washington and shot and killed 2 Israeli embassy employees, shot and murdered them both. And I just couldn't help but thinking today when I heard that creep Nazi, anti-Semite, murderer, Democrat, mainstream Democrat, is in court today, that he will undoubtedly have supporters outside the courthouse who want more Jews killed in the United States. And the irony, Patty, is that then they go around calling everybody Nazis and fascists when it's they and their people who are shooting and killing, murdering a nice young couple who were about to be engaged to be wed until they were murdered by a Democrat, and they were murdered because they were presumably Jewish at a Jewish museum. And, these same people that firebombed with Molotov cocktails the Jewish governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, and they call everybody else Nazis. No sense of irony, no understanding of history, apparently, the Democrat Party. Just amazing. But, because of Trump and you guys. So I'm sorry to say, Patty, that your son believes that enforcing the law and arresting criminals is somehow creating a war zone. Now, that's the opposite of common sense. And I'm going to guess, Patty, that your son went to a great college, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it an Ivy League institution?
No, he started at George Mason and then went somewhere else.
Okay. But this is what they teach on college campuses now. And they teach anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism and anti-capitalism. And the left has really sunk their teeth into academia, and they're sucking the lifeblood out of Western civilization. And I'm sorry that your family and that you have been subjected to this because of the brainwashing that your son has been subjected to. And I am glad you brought up the pots and pans. But I'm sorry that he yelled at you. Don't you even start with me because of Trump and people like you, that we've created a killing zone. Now, I mean, that is just the opposite of the truth. You bring an end to fight against crime, and then they blame you for the crime that is left. That is typical Democrat Party stuff. And Patty, I'm very sorry that you are having to deal with that. And as you said, so many millions of other families are dealing with the same thing. And it is, I know you were talking to Jasmine and you described it as Trump derangement syndrome, I think. And it is Trump derangement syndrome, and it's a pervasive affliction in our culture right now. And, Patty, what do we do about that? How do we fix that, Patty?
Oh, I don't know. I think we keep on keeping on. Listen to you and some of the other guys that I really like. Go to church and pray. Yeah. And love my son, even though I want to smack him upside the head.
That is extremely Christian of you. It genuinely is. It reminds me also, since you mentioned going to church and praying, that the Democrat Party, including members of Congress, were lashing out last week, and the former White House press secretary under Joe Biden, lashing out last week after a transgender Democrat mentally ill psychopath murdered children praying in a Catholic church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and gunned down more than a dozen more after killing 2 children and gunning down more than the Democrats. If you offered prayers for the people that had just been afflicted, the Democrat Party lashed out against prayer. And I do mean members of Congress and White House press secretary lashing out against the very notion of prayer. And Patty, these are the people that promote after-school Satan Club for students across America. They promote transgenderism when more and more transgender people are engaged in mass murders and mass shootings in numbers that are completely outsized to their representation in the population. And we live in a crazy, crazy time, Patty. I don't know, but you're right. We just keep on, and we keep on fighting and telling the truth and fighting for what is true. And we hope that the after-school Satan Club and the big lie that was, created by their boy Joseph Goebbels of the Socialist Workers' Party, or Gurgle, if you're talking to the Reverend Al Charlatan. Remarkable stuff. But, Patty, we just have to keep telling the truth and holding our heads high, knowing that the truth will win in the end.
Chris, you're a blessing to me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Patty. I'm very happy you called in. I'm very sorry you're going through what you're going through. And I had mentioned, since we're talking about D.C. crime and and your sadly Democrat son, and Foggy Bottom and Pots and Pans, and created a killing field. There, how many murders have we had now? We've had 103 or 106 murders in Washington, D.C. so far this year. Pretty amazing. Oh, I think I have a note on that here. Hang on just a sec. Thank you very much, Patty. Very nice talking to you. I hope I don't run into your son. But we've had 104, looking it up right now, Patty. We've had 104 homicides in Washington, D.C. But since President Trump started enforcing the law, the number of homicides dropped off a cliff, and we're down to practically zero. I think one Democrat murdered one black man in the meantime, and the Democrats don't care at all. Now, I should point out we've got 104 murders in Washington, D.C. so far this year. In Boston, which has very close to the same population, within about 25,000 people, Boston has had 25 murders so far this year. Boston, Massachusetts. D.C., 104 murders. But only one since President Trump started enforcing the law and cracking down on crime. But the Democrat Party wants more murders, and sadly your son, what he's fighting for is more murders. Now, let me go. My friend Steve, law enforcement, sent me the latest Attorney General Pamela Bondi tweet on crime in Washington and on law enforcement. Now, I mentioned earlier that when we hit 1,776, 1776 arrests in Washington, that the 1776 arrests should get some kind of an award, maybe a plaque or a lucite block. Hey, congratulations, you're the 1,776 arrests. But we've rushed by that. We've had 1,841 arrests so far in the Make D.C. Safe Again effort, including 188 firearms, all illegal firearms seized that were in the possession of criminals who tend to rob people and shoot people and murder people. So 188 illegal guns seized, right? And that's today's number. 81 additional arrests made yesterday. 13 more illegal firearms seized yesterday, including one firearm recovered from a school in downtown Washington, D.C. And the Democrats are against this. So the Democrats, again, are fighting for more murder. This is the kind of gun control I'm in favor of. Illegal, and about half these arrests are apparently illegal aliens that the Democrat Party waved into the country with their open borders, free for all, for illegal gangs effort that the Democrats are perpetrating against the country and against the American people. 81 additional arrests made yesterday, 13 more illegal firearms seized, including one firearm recovered at a school in downtown Washington, D.C. Our mission, making the nation's capital safe again, is for all Americans, and the Democrats are against it. Isn't that amazing? They don't believe in gun control. They believe in total control. They believe in authoritarianism. They believe in a Stalinist-style government where only the state has guns, and you will sit down and shut up, and then they'll mandate the vaccines that you inject into your children. Florida has something to say about that. Big news out of Florida when it comes to vaccines. That's coming up as well. 888-630-9625. Yeah, the tweet from the Justice Department yesterday on the arrests. They said day before yesterday, 92 arrests last night, 27 illegal firearms seized. Arrests include 2 homicide suspects, 5 arrests for assaults against law enforcement. The Democrats all assaulted the law enforcement. They're all Democrats. Let's go to, it's a violent political party. Let's go back to the telephones. And also they pointed out that the DEA, FBI, D.C. police also seized a pill press and 2 kilos of narcotics. That's one day, along with 92 arrests, 2 homicide suspects, 27 illegal firearms, yada, yada. Democrats. All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Patrick calling from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Patrick, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, Patrick Manning here. I'm actually calling from Pinellas County, Florida. Sorry about the misrepresentation. That's where my show was.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
Virginia.
Good.
But I just want to make a comment on some of the language that we should be using against the Democrats when it comes to Trump putting and enforcing the law in these neighborhoods.
Uh-huh.
On my issue, for me, it's a civil rights issue. People have a right to live in a peaceful neighborhood, and Democrats don't believe that. And once again, they're on the wrong side of history, and they're against human rights. So I don't see them marching for these human rights for these people that are in the neighborhoods like Washington, D.C., that had 1,500 carjackings last year.
Right.
That's not peaceful. That puts them in a position against human rights. And that's really how we should portray this, I think, anyway. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're 100% right. And, that's entirely true. You do have a civil right, and you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the violent criminal Democrats and the criminals that they raise have created a city where people are afraid to walk out their front door, where, I've shared with you all these stories of like a nice conservative organization with their offices down on Capitol Hill, mentally ill, drug addicted, drunk, smelly, homeless person sleeping in the front door of their building. And young women in their 20s working there are terrified to go to work in the morning. They're terrified to leave the building when it's time to leave. You need male escorts everywhere. And the Democrats' response is, well, let's defund the police. And when we arrest people, if the police show the poor judgment to arrest people, then we'll let them go immediately and put them back out on the street. Patrick, it's as though they're on the side of crime, isn't it?
It is, and I'll give you one statistic, and I'll let you get back to your great show. Down here in Pinellas County last year, we had 4 carjackings.
Four? Well, we had about 1,500 in D.C.